there's something we need to talk about. Something that's been quietly destroying people's potential, stealing their peace, and keeping them trapped in cycles they can't even see. And the strangest part? Most people think it's just how life works. They think the constant mental exhaustion, the endless second-guessing, the feeling like they're always one step behind everyone else, that's just normal. But it's not normal. It's learned. And if it's learned, it can be unlearned. I'm going to share something with you today that took me years to figure out. Something that, once you understand it, will save you from wasting decades of your life fighting battles that were never meant to be fought. Because here's the truth nobody wants to admit. The reason you feel stuck, the reason you keep repeating the same patterns, the reason you lie awake at night replaying conversations and analyzing every interaction, it's not because you're broken. It's because you've been taught to solve problems that don't actually exist. Think about it. How much of your mental energy goes toward trying to figure out what other people think of you? How much time do you spend crafting the perfect response to a text message, rehearsing conversations before they happen, or analyzing why someone looked at you a certain way? How often do you find yourself in this endless loop of mental calculations, trying to predict outcomes, control variables, and manage perceptions? This isn't consciousness. This isn't awareness. This is mental imprisonment. And the cage was built so gradually, so subtly, that you don't even realize you're in it. You think this is what thinking is supposed to feel like. But it's not. Real thinking is clear, purposeful, and surprisingly quiet. What you're experiencing is something entirely different. It's what happens when your mind becomes addicted to problems that have no solutions. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine you're walking through a forest and you come across a person frantically digging a hole. They're sweating, exhausted, covered in dirt. You ask them what they're doing, and they say, "I'm trying to dig my way out of this hole." You look around, confused, because they're not in a hole. They're standing on flat ground. But they're so focused on digging, so convinced that the solution lies at the bottom of this hole they're creating, that they can't see they're actually trapped by their own digging. This is what most people do with their minds. They create problems by overthinking, then try to solve those problems by thinking even more. They dig deeper and deeper, convinced that somewhere at the bottom of all this mental excavation, they'll find clarity. But the clarity was always available at ground level. They just couldn't see it because they were too busy digging. Here's what nobody tells you about the human mind. It's not designed to be constantly analyzing, calculating, and predicting. It's designed to respond. There's a huge difference. When you're responding, you're present. You're dealing with what's actually happening. When you're analyzing, you're living in a world of possibilities, projections, and imaginary scenarios. You're solving problems that exist only in your head. But we've been conditioned to believe that constant mental activity equals intelligence. That if you're not always thinking, planning, worrying, or figuring something out, you're being lazy or irresponsible. We've turned anxiety into a virtue and called it being prepared. We've turned overthinking into a skill and called it being thorough. We've turned mental exhaustion into a badge of honor and called it being productive. The result? An entire generation of people who are mentally exhausted before they even start their day. People who have forgotten what it feels like to have a quiet mind. People who mistake the noise in their head for important thoughts. People who are so busy managing their internal chaos that they never actually experience the life they're trying to optimize. And here's the part that will probably make you uncomfortable. You're not actually solving anything with all this mental activity. You're just creating the illusion of control. You think that by analyzing every possible outcome, you're preparing yourself for life. But life doesn't care about your analysis. Life happens in the moment, and it requires presence, not prediction. I know this sounds almost too simple, but bear with me, because once you understand this, once you really get it, everything changes. The constant mental chatter that you thought was necessary, it's not. The endless loops of worry and analysis, they're not helping you. they're actually making you less capable of handling whatever life throws at you. Think about the last time you had to deal with a real crisis, not an imaginary one, but something that actually required immediate action. What happened to all that mental noise? It disappeared, didn't it? Suddenly, you were present, focused, capable. You didn't need to analyze the situation to death. You just responded, and you probably handled it better than you thought you would. That's your natural state. That's how your mind is supposed to work. Clear, present, responsive. But somewhere along the way, you learn to distrust that natural capability. You learn to believe that unless you're constantly thinking about something, you're not handling it properly. You learn to fill every moment of silence with mental activity, as if your worth depended on how busy your mind was. This is where most people get stuck. They know something's wrong. They feel the exhaustion, the anxiety, the constant mental pressure. But when they try to fix it, they use the same thinking that created the problem in the first place. They analyze their anxiety. They think about their overthinking. They try to solve their mental chaos with more mental activity. It's like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. The solution isn't more thinking. It's not better thinking. It's not positive thinking, or organized thinking, or strategic thinking. The solution is learning when not to think at all. Learning to recognize when your mind is creating problems that don't exist. Learning to step back from the mental noise and remember that most of what you're worried about isn't actually happening. But here's where it gets interesting. This isn't just about feeling better, although you will. This isn't just about reducing anxiety, although that will happen too. This is about reclaiming your actual intelligence. Because when your mind isn't cluttered with imaginary problems, when you're not wasting mental energy on things that don't matter, you become incredibly clear about what does matter. You become capable of seeing solutions that were invisible when you were caught up in the mental noise. You start making decisions from a place of clarity rather than confusion. You start responding to life instead of reacting to your thoughts about life. You start living in the present instead of some imaginary future where all your problems are solved. And paradoxically, when you stop trying to control everything, you gain real control over the things that actually matter. This isn't about becoming passive or disengaged. It's about becoming efficient. It's about using your mind as a tool rather than being used by it. It's about recognizing that your thoughts are not facts, your worries are not predictions, and your mental activity is not always productive. Most people spend their entire lives fighting a war inside their own head, a war against thoughts that don't serve them, emotions they don't want to feel, and realities they don't want to accept. But what if you could end that war? What if you could stop fighting yourself and start living? That's what we're going to explore. Not through more analysis, not through more thinking, but through understanding something fundamental about how your mind actually works. Something that will change, not just how you feel, but how you experience reality itself. The first step is recognizing that you have a choice. Right now, as you're listening to this, you have the power to stop the mental machinery that's been running your life. Not by fighting it, not by analyzing it, but by simply stepping back and watching it work. Most people never realize they can do this. They're so identified with their thoughts that they believe they are their thoughts. But you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that observes them. And once you understand this distinction, everything shifts. Because when you can observe your thoughts without being consumed by them, you gain something most people never experience: mental freedom. Here's a simple exercise that will prove this to you. For the next 30 seconds, try to stop thinking completely. Just sit there and try to have no thoughts at all. Go ahead, try it now. What happened? Thoughts kept coming, didn't they? But here's the crucial part. Who was trying to stop the thoughts? And who was noticing that thoughts kept coming? That observer, that awareness that was watching your mind. Try to be quiet. That's who you really are. This changes everything. Because once you realize you're not your thoughts, you can start choosing which ones to engage with. You can let the mental noise play in the background without feeling compelled to solve every problem it presents. You can watch your mind create elaborate scenarios and simply say, "That's interesting, but I don't need to go there right now." Most of your mental suffering comes from believing you have to engage with every thought that crosses your mind. You think that if you're having a worried thought, you need to worry. If you're having an anxious thought, you need to be anxious. If you're having a self-critical thought, you need to defend yourself, but you don't. You can let these thoughts exist without giving them your energy. Think of your mind like a radio that's constantly scanning stations. Sometimes it picks up clear signals, sometimes static, sometimes multiple stations at once. Most people think they need to tune into every station, analyze every signal, and make sense of all the noise. But you don't have to listen to every station. You can choose which frequency to tune into. This doesn't mean ignoring genuine problems or avoiding necessary decisions. It means distinguishing between what requires your attention and what's just mental noise. Real problems have real solutions. They exist in the present moment and can be addressed through action. Mental noise is everything else. The endless what-ifs, the replaying of past conversations, the rehearsing of future scenarios that may never happen. Here's how you can tell the difference. Ask yourself, is this something I can actually do something about right now? If the answer is yes, then engage. Take action. Handle it. If the answer is no, then it's mental noise. Let it be there, but don't feed it with your attention. The magic happens when you stop trying to solve every problem your mind presents. Because here's what most people don't realize. Your mind is not trying to help you. It's trying to keep you safe. And to your mind, safety means being prepared for every possible threat, even imaginary ones. So, it creates problems to solve, scenarios to analyze, and dangers to avoid. It keeps you busy with mental activity so you feel like you're doing something productive. But this constant mental vigilance is exhausting. It's like having a security guard who never sleeps, never takes a break, and sees threats everywhere. Eventually, you become so tired from being constantly alert that you can't function properly. You lose the ability to enjoy simple moments because you're always scanning for problems. The solution is not to fire the security guard. It's to train him to only alert you to real threats. And most of what your mind presents as urgent is not urgent at all. It's just noise, background chatter, mental static. When you stop engaging with every thought, something remarkable happens. Your mind starts to quiet down, not because you're suppressing anything, but because you're no longer feeding the mental machine with your attention. Thoughts need your energy to survive. When you stop giving them energy, they naturally fade away. This is not about becoming emotionally numb or disconnected. It's about becoming more present, more responsive, more alive. When you're not caught up in mental loops, you can actually experience life as it's happening. You can have conversations without rehearsing what you're going to say next. You can enjoy moments without analyzing them to death. You can make decisions from a place of clarity rather than confusion. The people who seem to effortlessly navigate life, who appear calm and centered, even in challenging situations, they're not superhuman. They've simply learned to distinguish between what's real and what's mental noise. They've learned to respond to life rather than react to their thoughts about life. This is available to you right now. You don't need to wait until you fixed all your problems or figured everything out. You don't need to become a different person or develop some special skill. You just need to remember that you have a choice. You can engage with every thought that crosses your mind, or you can let most of them pass by like clouds in the sky. The years of mental anguish you could save yourself by understanding this simple truth is immeasurable. Instead of spending decades fighting battles in your head, you can use that energy to actually live your life. Instead of being exhausted by imaginary problems, you can be present for real moments. Instead of being trapped by your thoughts, you can be free to experience who you actually are beneath all the mental noise. This is your invitation to step out of the mental prison you've been living in, not through more analysis, not through more thinking, but through the simple recognition that you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that observes them, and from that place of awareness, you can choose peace over chaos, presence over projection, and freedom over mental imprisonment. The choice is yours. It always has been. You just forgot you had it, but now you remember, and that changes everything.